Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series where we briefly discuss and analyze important news of the day. Without delay, take a look at the headlines first. SR Bommai Judgement 1994 by 9-judge bench of Supreme Court completes 30 years. Rajya Sabha's role is part of basic structure of Constitution, says the Supreme Court. Sweden has officially become the 32nd member of North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO. Indian official delegation held talks with Afghan authorities. Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement has been signed between India and European Free Trade Association. Draft IRDAI, Protection of Policyholders' Interests and Allied Matters of Insurers Regulations 2024 has been released. In the very first news, SR Bommai Judgement 1994 by 9-judge bench of Supreme Court completes 30 years. Judgment laid down the scope of Article 356 of the Constitution and defined certain restrictions on its use. Under Article 356, President's rule can be imposed on any state on the grounds of the failure of constitutional machinery. Proclamation for President's rule must be approved by both houses of Parliament within 2 months, or it ceases to exist. Further, such proclamation requires approval every 6 months for continuance. Let's take a look at the background of the case. In 1989, Karnataka governor had recommended to the president to impose president's rule after withdrawal of support to ruling party by 19 MLAs. The case went to Supreme Court, which also reviewed similar cases in Meghalaya, Nagaland, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Himachal Pradesh. Here are the key highlights of the judgment. President's power to dismiss a state government is not absolute and subject to judicial review on grounds of illegality, malafide, extraneous considerations, abuse of power, or fraud. It overruled State of Rajasthan versus Union of India 1977 judgment. Secondly, President can dissolve the State Legislative Assembly only after approval of proclamation by the Parliament. Till then, State Legislative Assembly can be suspended. Lastly, suspended government would be automatically reinstated if parliamentary approval is not obtained within 2 months. Further, in terms of significance of the judgment, it checks the power of the governor in his state. It upheld federalism by drawing a red line for center-state relationships. Also, the judgment made the assembly floor testing ground for proving the majority of a government.
Moving ahead, Rajya Sabha's role is part of basic structure of Constitution, says the Supreme Court. In Sita Soren versus Union of India case, noting the role of Rajya Sabha as part of basic structure, Supreme Court declared that Rajya Sabha elections are within the scope of Article 194, Clause 2. Article 194, Clause 2 deals with powers and privileges of members of legislature of a state. The basic structure doctrine holds that certain fundamental features of the Constitution cannot be amended or abrogated by Parliament. If we talk about Rajya Sabha or Council of States, it is the upper house of Parliament constituted under Article 79 and 80 and it represents the state's interest in Parliament. Let's now discuss and understand the significance of Rajya Sabha. It checks on hasty and ill-conceived legislation, thus providing an opportunity for detailed scrutiny of legislative business. Also, it acts as a conduit for states, furthering the principle of democratic decentralization and cooperative federalism, fostering federal bicameralism. Moreover, the Rajya Sabha also has some special powers, like the legislation by Parliament on state subjects listed under Schedule 7, Article 249, and the creation of new All India Services, Article 312. Despite its significance, there are also some issues with Rajya Sabha. Let's have a look at them as well. First is the removal of state domicile criteria in 2003 for election to Rajya Sabha, which has affected the representation of states adversely. Second are legislative issues like bypassing of Rajya Sabha when enacting a bill. For example, the Aadhaar Act was passed as money bill. Moreover, the Rajya Sabha cannot make Union Executive accountable as instruments such as no confidence motion and adjournment motion are not available with Rajya Sabha. At last, now let's have a look at the recommendations related to Rajya Sabha in the Punchi Commission 2010. It recommends for equal representation of states in Rajya Sabha irrespective of population size, and Parliament should restore the territorial link between Rajya Sabha members and the state that they represent.
Moving on to the next news. Sweden has officially become the 32nd member of North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 led Sweden along with Finland to apply for NATO membership. In 2023, Finland became the 31st NATO member, followed by Sweden, making the entire Nordic region the part of NATO. NATO's expansion is significant because it will boost the comprehensive defense capabilities of NATO and will also lead to strategic influence over Baltic Sea and development of robust defense industry. NATO is a transatlantic political and military alliance established by the North Atlantic Treaty or Washington Treaty 1949. Its headquarters is situated in Brussels, Belgium. NATO's original purposes were to deter Soviet expansionism, forbidding the revival of nationalist militarism in Europe and European political integration. Now take a look at some important NATO policies. In Article 5 of North Atlantic Treaty, NATO establishes a system of collective defense, stating that an attack against one member country is considered an attack against all member countries. And Article 10 of North Atlantic Treaty says NATO membership is open to any other European state which can further the principles of the treaty and contribute to the security of North Atlantic area. It has 12 founding member countries, namely Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, UK, and USA. Since 1949, NATO's membership has increased from 12 to 32 countries through 10 rounds of enlargement. And the countries aspiring for NATO's membership are Bosnia and Herzegovina, Georgia, and Ukraine. In another news, Indian official delegation held talks with Afghan authorities. Delegation on a visit to Afghanistan discussed India's humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan and use of Chabahar port Iran by Afghan traders. Let's have a look at India-Afghan relations post-Taliban takeover of Afghanistan in August 2021. In June 2022, India launched a technical mission in Kabul to facilitate and coordinate India's humanitarian assistance endeavors. In regards to education, India has continued Indian Council for Cultural Relations (ICCR) scholarship scheme for Afghan students. Trade and commerce is ongoing unhindered since Taliban takeover, including the Chabahar port. Now let's also look at the significance of peace and stability in Afghanistan for India. Afghanistan is considered as gateway to Central Asian region, facilitating regional connectivity. Stability in Afghanistan could pave way for Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India or Tapi gas pipeline, thus strengthening India's energy security. For security reasons, stable Afghanistan is essential to combat Pakistan-based terrorist groups. But there are certain challenges along the way. First and foremost, the ideological differences. Extremist religious ideology of Taliban is at odds with India's democratic and secular values, which results in India's recognition dilemma of current Afghan regime. We also have humanitarian concerns, particularly women's rights and access to education and healthcare. Thirdly, the limited engagement. Recent closure of Afghan embassy in Delhi strained relations over denial of visas to Afghan students and more. Lastly, regional geopolitics. Pakistan's desire to acquire strategic depth in Afghan without controlling territories. Furthermore, moving forward, India would need diplomatic pragmatism to engage with Taliban both bilaterally and as a part of regional grouping like SAARC, SEO, and more to protect India's security and strategic interests. And increase the people-to-people contact by continuing to host Afghan students and capitalize on its strong goodwill among Afghan people.
In another news, Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement has been signed between India and European Free Trade Association. The agreement comprises 14 chapters with main focus on market access related to goods, rules of origin, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, investment promotion, and intellectual property rights. Let's now discuss and understand the key highlights of the agreement. The European Free Trade Association has committed to promote investments with aim to increase the stock of foreign direct investments by $100 billion, excluding foreign portfolio investment in India in the next 15 years. For the first time in history of FTAs, legal commitment was made about promoting target-oriented investment and creation of jobs. EFTA's market access offer covers 100% of non-agri products and tariff concession on processed agricultural products. Also, the commitments made related to IPR in Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement are at TRIPS level. Moreover, services that have been offered from EFTA include better access through digital delivery of services, commercial presence, and improved commitments and certainty for entry and temporary stay of key personnel. Additionally, it also includes provisions for mutual recognition agreements in professional services like nursing, chartered accountants, and architects. Further, if we discuss the significance of Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement, then it will foster transparency, efficiency, simplification, harmonization and consistency of trade procedures. Also, it will empower Indian exporters access to specialized inputs and create conducive trade and investment environments. Moreover, it will also provide impetus to Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat in sectors such as manufacturing, machinery, and pharmaceuticals. At last, now let's also have a look at the European Free Trade Association. It is an intergovernmental organization for promotion and intensification of free trade. Its present members include Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. These countries are not part of the European Union. It was founded by Stockholm Convention in 1960 with its 7 founding members, which are Austria, Denmark, Great Britain, Norway, Portugal, Sweden, and Switzerland. Moving on to the next news. Draft IRDAI Protection of Policyholders' Interests and Allied Matters of Insurers Regulations 2024 has been released. The Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, or IRDAI, framed these regulations in exercise of powers under Insurance Act 1938 and IRDA Act 1999. Let's start by first having a look at the key highlights of the regulation. It brings together 8 separate regulations into a unified and comprehensive framework, and its objective is to ensure that the interests of policyholders are protected and insurers and distribution channel fulfill their obligations towards policyholders. If we talk about the key measures for protection of interest of policyholders provided in regulation, then these include the free look period for returning policy without any penalties shall be 30 days from the date of receipt of the policy document. For life insurance, there will be compulsory gathering of nominee information at proposal stage. Policies will be offered in electronic format with measures for safeguarding data privacy. Insurers shall prevent mis-selling and unfair business practices, and every insurer shall have a system for registering and disposing of grievances in each of its offices. Further talking about the challenges to insurance sector from policyholders' perspective include low insurance penetration, which is 4.2%, and insurance density of about $91, delays in processing of claim settlement, high premium with 18% GST on insurance premium, and mis-selling of products with lack of awareness and knowledge of coverage. At last, now let's know about the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. It is a statutory body formed under IRDA Act 1999. Its purpose include overall supervision and development of the insurance sector in India. Its key objectives include protecting the interest of policyholders, speedy and orderly growth of the insurance industry, and speedy settlement of genuine claims. Also, IRDAI is taking steps like Bima Sugam, Bima Bahak and Bima Vistar amongst other to fulfill its vision of insurance for all by 2047. The personality news for today is Lachit Borphukan. The Prime Minister unveiled a 125-foot high statue of the famous general of the Royal Army of Ahom Kingdom of Assam, Lachit Borphukan. Lachit Borphukan was born in Charaideo district of Assam. He united and brought together the tribal forces of Assam and defeated Mughal army at the Battle of Saraighat in 1671. National Defence Academy gives the Lachit Borphukan Gold Medal to the best cadet since 1999. Also, Lachit Divas or Lachit Day is celebrated in Assam every year on November 24. The Prime Minister also released the book Lachit Borphukan, Assam's hero who halted the Mughals in 2022. He exhibited the values of patriotism, inspirational leadership, courage and fearlessness.
As we conclude today's main news, let's take a look at some quick updates. PM inaugurated Sabroom land port in Tripura, located along India-Bangladesh international border. The land port is connected to Chittagong port of Bangladesh through Maitri Bridge on River Feni. It will facilitate movement of passengers and cargo between India and Bangladesh. Prime Minister inaugurated strategically important Sela Tunnel in Arunachal Pradesh. It is constructed on road connecting Tezpur, Assam to Tawang in West Kameng district of Arunachal Pradesh by Border Road Organization. Sea Defenders 2024 is a maritime security exercise between the Indian Coast Guard and United States Coast Guard, which recently culminated at Port Blair, Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Blue Leaders High-Level Event on Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction or BBNJ urged nations to ratify the BBNJ Treaty. The treaty will come into force after ratification by at least 60 countries, but out of 88 signatories, only 2 have ratified it so far. India is yet to sign the treaty. According to the latest survey, there are around 7,396 golden langurs in India, listed as endangered by International Union for Conservation of Nature. These belong to a large group of old world monkeys called the colobines. Scientists have genetically modified a fruit fly to reproduce asexually through parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis is an asexual reproduction in which a female can produce an embryo without fertilizing an egg with sperm. India's fastest and indigenously developed multi-protocol label switching (MPLS) router launched in Bangalore. It has been developed by Nivetti Systems of Bangalore in collaboration with the Department of Telecom and Center for Development of Telematics. Recently, Gorsamkora Festival was concluded in the Tawang district of Arunachal Pradesh. The theme for the festival was Zero Waste Festival, organized by local community of Zemithang in collaboration with civil authorities. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to the test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answers to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.